Welcome to the Techno Fundamental Report for July the 10th. I recently watched this movie, Paul Newman in HUD, and it had an interesting twist about two emotions, fear and greed. And with fear, the problem with fear is when you're fearful, you probably you're not doing things that you need to be doing. Like if you should be investing, but you're fearful, that's bad. However, greed, in a way, is worse because you end up doing things that you normally wouldn't do, such as put your money in Stanford CDs. Here we go. This is an interesting story. The dad, who was Homer, and the son was HUD, and they had a herd of cattle that had foot and mouth disease, which back then was terrible because you had to sequester your cattle, and it was a very difficult situation. So what HUD said was, he implores his father to sell the cows before anyone knows they're sick. So kind of greed. The father refuses, pointing out that there's a very real chance of a national epidemic. So this kid, his son, wanted to sell cattle into the feedlot that was not quarantined, that could destroy an industry. But because he was so greedy that he was willing to risk an epidemic in the cattle industry. And then he said, "Dad, I say let's put our bread in some of that gravy while it's still hot." So in other words, he was saying, let's sell those cows, damn the torpedoes, we're going to screw our neighbors, basically. So what was interesting, I went to ChatGPT and I said, how could I relate this to investing? And he said, well, and you might want to pause your video player and look at this. Basically, HUD was short-term oriented, looking for the quick profit, and he had no principles. He was basically a psychopath in a way. But then the father, who had all the sense, said, go with this long term. We don't want to ruin our relationships with our neighbors, and we want to, have a healthy cattle industry. So we just got to bite the bullet and deal with the foot and mouth disease, which is a hoof, by the way. Law of large numbers. Gerald Loeb wrote The Battle for Investment Survival, which I will say is probably the best book on investing out there. He was the founding partner of E.F. Hutton, and he was considered very wise. Again, you might want to pause your video player. I took a section of the book here. And he said, my feeling is that an intelligent program or strategy aimed at doubling one's money might at least succeed in retaining one's capital or actually making a good profit with it. So in other words, if you think about the numbers for a minute, if you double your money in a stock, let's say over 5 years, that's a 15% annualized return. I don't think that's high enough for the risk you're taking because stocks are risky. But he's saying basically that you need to look for things that can double. Now, the law of large numbers, this is really a theory. It's just a theory, but it's something that really gets my attention because I think the most important number on a financial statement is the market capitalization of the company. So it's all about finding something good and getting there before the next guy. So here's a list of the Mag 7. We have Meta, we have Microsoft, Nvidia, Amazon, Google, Tesla, and Apple. These stocks are starting to underperform the market. Their relative strength is starting to drop. Now, at the same time, there's a new class of AI winners that may take center stage. Now, we're going to look at them real quick, and I have to apologize. We're going to run a little long today because I'm going to really take a look at these companies for you. But anyway, point being is these stocks, AI power, AI software, AI semiconductors, whereas they're outperforming where the Mag 7 is starting to underperform. So it's a changing of the guard. You want to look for the cousins. When we first found Apple back in 2003, it didn't even have a phone, and it was a $35 billion company. Well, it's in the trillions now. So if you look at like Nvidia, which we're going to look at here in a minute, we're talking about a company that just hit $4 trillion today. So the question is, can it go to $8 trillion? Well, it's never happened before. So, the law of large numbers is something that is very meaningful to me. Now, according to Kochu, I can't even pronounce it, but anyway, he runs a hedge fund, and he came out with this report, and he's saying, we believe this is an AI supercycle. Now, last week we talked about Sir Isaac Newton, standing on shoulders of giants. So you have to look here, 1960, 1980 mainframe computer, 1980s PC. So it just builds on itself. In other words, we get smarter and smarter and smarter and smarter and smarter. So hopefully the AI situation is something where we're really going to get smart. So let's just look at them. Let's look at the old names first. Here's Apple. Moving sideways below the 200-day moving average. I just don't like the chart. Amazon, it looks okay. It's in an uptrend, so it looks okay. There's a lot going on there. Keep an eye on it. But these are the big companies. Now realize this is a $2.36 trillion company. Is it going to go to $5 trillion? I don't know. It's never been a $5 trillion company. Apple is now $3 trillion. Can it go to $6 trillion? Never happened, but it could. I'm just saying that I would rather find something that's a little bit smaller in market cap that has the possibilities of doubling. So here's Google, $2 trillion. It looks okay. It's just kind of basically moving sideways. Meta looks pretty good. This is the old Facebook. But now we're looking at almost a $2 trillion company. So the law of large numbers applies here. Microsoft, almost $4 trillion. But it does look good. It's in a very positive pattern. It is in a nice uptrend. So if I own these stocks, I would say Microsoft probably looks the best. NVIDIA looks pretty darn good too. Now we're at $4 trillion as of this morning. You can see a nice uptrend breaking out to a new high. Nothing wrong there. It's just that, do you want to tie up your capital in a $4 trillion company hoping it's going to go to $8 trillion? Well, I'm just not going to do that. So here's Tesla. Tesla appears to be somewhat in trouble. Stock's broken down below the 200-day. Chart doesn't look good. So I wouldn't pay too much attention to Tesla. Now here are the new ones. This is Broadcom, which is $1.3 trillion. So can it go to $2 trillion or $2.6 trillion? Well, as we just saw, there are other companies that have done that. So it's a possibility. So Broadcom looks good. We're talking semiconductors here. Now let's go to Constellation Energy. Now these energy stocks are being touted as a way for these data centers to have electricity, because this new one going in Monroe, Louisiana, which is a $10 billion data center, the largest in the Western Hemisphere. I'm hearing, and I may be incorrect, but I'm hearing it will use as much electricity in a day as the whole city of New Orleans uses in a day. So Constellation Energy is, I think it looks kind of positive. It's got somewhat of a sideways action, flat. I would keep an eye on it. It's on my watch list. So that's what I'm trying to show you is a watch list here. Now here's GE Vernova. Now they're mainly into gas turbines and nuclear turbines and just turbines in general. But you can see here that pattern's looking pretty darn good. And it basically broke out to a new high today. So GE Vernova. Here's Oracle. Now Oracle is $660 billion. Can it grow to over 1.2, 1.3 trillion? Again, it has happened before, so it's possible. But I really like this chart. It's good. It looks very positive. Good volume signature, good uptrend. Everything looks good. Here is Palantir. Now, Palantir, as we all know, is mainly a defense contractor that has AI software. To give you, I heard this story. I thought this was interesting. One of the things that's happening is with drones is that they run on certain technologies that tell it where to go. Well, what happens, like in Iran, they were jamming the signals so that that technology wasn't working. But I'm hearing that they're now making drones where they have artificial intelligence, which means like a brain in the drone that just looks at a map and just goes where the map tells them to go. So it's kind of an interesting concept. But anyway, stock looks good. It kind of pulled back here quite a bit, kind of moving sideways, got a nice base, somewhat breaking out. Keep an eye on it. It looks promising. Here's Snowflake, which is basically an AI infrastructure, which is storage of data. It's somewhat moving sideways, but, it's definitely in an uptrend. Everything looks pretty positive. Here is Vistra Energy, another energy play. Look at this, breaking out of a base here. That looks pretty good to me. So, in conclusion, and I tried to keep it as short as I could, primary trend is up, Market looks good. All of our indicators are positive. We are in a bull market. So if you have any questions, please give me a call. Thank you very much.